Hi and welcome to Sam's Reviews and Recommendations. In today's video we're going to be talking about the 3-part documentary on the Beatles, Get Back. The cast is obviously the Beatles, being John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Ringo Starr and George Harrison. But we also have people appearing in now and then. Michael Lindsay Hogg, a famous director not only for many films but music videos for such bands as the Rolling Stones as well as the Beatles. He directed Paperback Writer and Rain. We also have George Martin, the producer of the Beatles, one of the best producers out there. We also have Mal Evans, a roadie for the Beatles. And we have Yoko Ono, John Lennon's wife, for those who don't know. So, essentially, the documentary is about Paul McCartney coming up with this idea to create a TV special where they record, I think they wanted to do about 14 songs, create it, film them performing it live and release it to the world, kind of like what they did with All You Need Is Love and Hey Jude. And the footage we're seeing is them rehearsing and planning for that particular TV special. As a Beatlehead, I loved this documentary. There's so many reasons why. Let me just get into many of them. So the first one is we're seeing how they create songs, which is amazing. Especially seeing how from the conception of an idea to the finished product. It's brilliant. We also get to see how they interact with each other, wanting chord changes and tweaking lyrics. Sometimes as they're playing, say for example, Get Back, they'll be like, do 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 the A chord. Like, it's cool. It's interesting to see. Another thing that I liked as well is we see the Beatles as real people. If you watch a lot of interviews and music videos, you can see that it's polished. Whilst this one, we see them as real, down-to-earth, cool people who curse,
fuck you now,
who make mistakes, and you kind of get into arguments with, and crack a lot of jokes, which is always nice to see. If you don't know the Beatles, great sense of humour. One of my favourite things, which does astound me about this documentary, is it's set within 1 month, the January 1969. 1 month, they wrote the majority of Let It Be and performed on the rooftop, let's not forget that. But they recorded early demos, bear in mind, of majority of Abbey Road as well as a lot of songs from their own solo careers. So that's, what, 5 albums worth of material in 1 month. That's astounding. That's amazing. In this documentary, we see McCartney really trying to get the other Beatle members interested in this TV special idea, which I think they come along with, but they're not really as interested in it as Paul is, or as Paul is trying to get them to be. And I see it somewhat as, after the whole White Album situation, Paul is desperate to get these lads to work together, as he is seeing the Beatles as they're going to break up and this is his desperate attempt to keep them together. Kind of being funny really, as the first week he annoyed George to the extent he left. So, Another thing that I did enjoy seeing in this documentary is actually how Yoko Ono has always been seen as the person that broke the Beatles up. And people say, oh, she was always in the studio, especially with this. When you watch Let It Be, the original film, you see Yoko always in the background. What I liked about this is that you actually see that George Harrison brought 2 Hare Krishnas during the first week of practices in the Twickenham studios. And while Yoko is also there as well, it destroys the rumour that John was the only person bringing that people in, outside the Beatles, into the studio. But to be fair to George, they were in the background whilst Yoko was up close. Another thing I also was interested in is seeing how somewhat incompetent Apple studio workers were. Now obviously this is a time where people were taking the Beatles for a ride, cash-wise, and this is before they met Alan Klein and that shit ended. But we see that a lot of incompetent staff like Glyn Johns, for example, or Magic Alec, they were setting up the Apple Studios before, so when they get that there's still issues, and it doesn't even really get fixed until near the end of the documentary. There's a point where the Beatles actually left the studio hoping that these issues would be resolved whilst they go get lunch, and you can see some issues being fixed, but overall it's still a piss take. The one main thing I need to talk in high praise is the quality of not only the footage, but also the audio, because this is 60 hours worth of footage and 150 hours worth of audio, and how he was able to upgrade them and make it look somewhat modern. If you watch the Let It Be film, it's grainy, the footage isn't particularly great, as well as the audio, but somehow I'm astounded by how Peter Jackson did this. He deserves some type of award for it. Overall, I really enjoyed this documentary, and it's made me fall somewhat in love with the Beatles music again. It's actually really nice to see. I'm not going to give it a rating as it's a documentary, but I will be recommending other stuff. So if you are interested in the Beatles and really want to know the history, I definitely recommend the Beatles Anthology. You'll know from the start how they met, how they handbook, so much, you'll learn everything. If you just want a small bit of the Beatles, learn their history but not go into too much depth, I'd recommend The Beatles Complete, spelled EAT.